So welcome. So in this episode, this is episode 1, and we're going to be talking about the Jacobean era, James I and his fascination with witches. And today I'm joined with Lara.
Hello.
And I'm joined with Holly.
Hello.
And these two I'm going to be putting through their paces, basically. And you're going to be listening to me talk facts about witches, and then at the end, I'm going to see how much you've learnt and see. So basically, for my EPQ, I think my question is, how has witchcraft changed over the centuries? Mm-hmm. So this is episode 1. So we're talking about witchcraft and its origins and going into the fascination part of it in England in the 17th century. So, to begin with, what is your idea of a witch, and what definition would you give for a witch?
I mean, I guess witches were just women who were thought to be, I mean, I've read a bit about it, so I kind of know a little bit, but women who have been associated with the devil and Satan, especially in the Middle Ages and everything, and, were accused of doing different things to the population, mm-hmm. or, cursing people, that kind of thing. And I guess that's evolved since then, but that's my basic understanding of what a witch would be.
Yeah, I'm similar. I don't really know much about it, to be honest. I only really remember the things I saw when I was younger, like little shows, like, was it Winnie the Witch, that book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of warts and black cats and all of that superstitious stuff. So I don't really know too much about witches, actually. Excited to learn.
So, to start off my research, I just typed in definition of a witch, just to see what came up. So the first one that came up was from the Parliament website, which you'd never thought. And so the terms of witchcraft and witch derive from the Old English, I can't pronounce this very well, but so it's WICCECRAEFT from Wicca, it's a masculine, or WICCE, which is feminine, pronounced witchica or witchica, so or a. And it's respectively denoting someone who practices sorcery from a craft, meaning craft or skill. So that's from the Parliament website. So intriguing way of the way they think about it.
On the government website about witches.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That shows their influence, really.
Exactly. And then another great definition I found, which was from Tracey Boarman's book Witches, James I and the English Witch Hunts. Good read. And so this is in her introduction of it. And so George Gifford produced this following succinct definition. A witch is one that is worketh by the devil or by some devilish or curious art, either hunting or healing. So William Perkins agreed with him and said a witch is a magician who either by open or secret league, wittingly and willingly conceiveth, big words, to use the aid and assistance of the devil in working of wonders. So it's, again, the idea that this definition brings more in with religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the idea...
I forgot to say, it's very religious.
Yeah,
based,
religious.
Isn't it?
Guys, a lot of religion today.
So
I am warning you. Pre-warning, a lot of religion.
Yeah.
So, and then I did further research into its, star origins. So you had the proper origin. So witches have been around for centuries, a really long time. However, it really kicked off in England with the bringing of James I to the throne. And basically, so I found out this it's taken from an English Heritage website, A History of Witches. So witchcraft is thought to predate Christianity by many centuries.
I wouldn't expect that.
No, exactly, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So an example is in Homer's Odyssey, which I think people study it in classic. So it's a classic book. Mm-hmm. And a Circe who turns men into animals, described as a witch. Many early laws went against witches, but against sorcery. So unlike witchcraft can be beneficial, it requires special skills, tools, and words. So there's two different things. So being a witch is, sorcery is basically, I'm guessing, putting spells on people.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Whereas being a witch, you got to have everything. The books, the words,
maybe sorcery was more general as well, like
Yeah.
both. But I think witchcraft's definitely more associated
Yeah.
with women.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think.
Yeah.
I think maybe sorcery was what they called it before, you know, the prosecution of women as witches started. Maybe
Yeah.
that's how I view it. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's right, but
No. Yeah.
that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah. So witches were also considered to be the followers of Satan, guys. Satan, the devil, will be coming up quite a bit today, who had traded their souls for his assistance, basically. So that's the idea. So this is what men were thinking back in the day. You know what? A woman, she's definitely been selling her soul to the devil. And I will go on to talk a bit more
How do you
about it.
prove that?
Yeah,
How do you
it's
prove
such
someone
a-
sold their soul?
Sorcery is such an unknown thing. Like, I
Yeah, I
guess they
know.
were probably just terrified of the unknown.
Yeah, and it was all in that time when it was God and everyone had to be pious and blasphemy was mental, really,
Exactly.
wasn't it? So anyone seemed to be not in, you know, God's view would be just...
Again, I think the idea of the Adam and Eve story and bringing in the idea that Eve was cunning, she gave Adam the apple and he, you know, original sin. And I think that's where
that's
people were
interesting.
like,
It must
hang
be
on a
women.
second,
Yeah.
it must be a woman.
Adam didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
Or did he?
So the next
question.
piece of research I did was a book kind of gifted by Holly herself here, called Unwell Women, and
It's a great
by
book, you should
Eleanor
read it.
Cleghorn. And I looked at pages 45 to 55. So this is coming this is coming later than the origins. So this is like 1400s, getting into James I, and then we go from there, basically. So Henrik Cranmer, he was a priest in 1474, and he was granted permission by the Pope to become an inquisitor and condemn those committing heresy. So basically, he kind of had a fake job. If you think about it, come on. You're condemning heresy, but what is heresy?
Yeah, what is heresy, Lucy?
That's a good question.
So heresy, so you could be condemned for two things. So later on, I will go on to talk about you could have been condemned for heresy. You could have been condemned for going against the king, treason. That's the word I was looking for.
So treason and heresy,
Two
two
different things.
Okay.
So if you were condemned for heresy, you would be burnt.
Oh gosh.
If you were condemned for treason, you would be hung. So in different parts of the country and the world in Europe, you would be for different things.
I see, but
So-
they're not actually that different
No.
crimes.
So
Or
the
are
idea-
they even crimes?
Exactly. So the idea of heresy so they use burning for heresy, and the reason for that is to release the soul, the body of the devil out of this person
Oh my God, I
before
never
they
knew
go,
that.
before they go to heaven. So or heaven or hell or wherever
Purgatory.
wherever they
Yeah.
decide to go. And it's just a mad thinking one thing could be part into two,
So was heresy more of a religious thing, and treason was more of a just general?
So treason
like
was
saying about the
so
monarchy.
if
Yeah.
you were going against the king, so being a witch, if you're a witch who has cursed the king, that is treason because you're willing to kill the king. However, heresy, you've killed someone's cow. With witchcraft, that's classed as heresy because you've caught
I see.
That
Yeah.
makes more sense.
Yeah. So in 1484, sorry about the cat in the background.
He's having a great
1484,
time.
he was permissible to convict people of witchcraft. And in 1474, again, Pope Innocent had issued a decree he issued another group of heretics known as the Papal Bull of Witches. You've got to love a bit of papal. So this is more of the Pope. So it's even the Pope's like, there's witches out there. And bringing in
That would make
stuff
sense
to-
though, with the whole
a
god
massive,
devil
massive
thing.
like,
yeah.
The Pope was talking about it. Then
Well, yeah, if
everyone's gonna.
I
Follow.
guess if you got all the high, like the people seen as the high, like the popes weren't they like the greatest
Oh,
beings?
he
weren't
is.
they? Yeah.
He is second. So you got God, you got the Pope, and then you've got everybody else. So
Really?
Pope is assigned by
And if
God.
they're saying that there's witches, then
Everyone's gonna be
believe
like-
that, isn't it?
You're not even gonna question it, are you?
So
No.
in 1485, this nutter Cranmer was now no longer. So he was a priest, but now he was no longer confined to his pulpit. He was no longer confined to the church, and it meant he could go running around Europe hunting down
So
heretics.
he was just let loose, really.
Basically. So
Okay.
he instead. So I'm guessing someone had gone, you know what, you're quite good. We'll let you go and go hunt some witches for us. And he was probably like, yes, please, So Helena Schuberin, there were rumours going around So this was one of the first, I think, people he found, and she made a woman ill to steal her husband, because you know that happens.
Is that allegedly? Or
Allegedly.
Okay.
And inflicted disease and death on a knight who rejected her advances, of course, thinking again about...
Sounds like an evil problem.
Yeah, thinking again, Adam and Eve, the woman's making advances on a knight. Just see where I'm coming from. He also thought she loved magic, but there was no evidence for this. And she was an adulteress, which must prove witchcraft.
Was there evidence that she killed the knight?
Well, I don't think... Well, the knight was killed, but I don't think there was evidence that it was her.
And also,
he just died. He died from disease, which they would claim that you've inflicted disease.
So it's all disease then, there's no proof, is there?
Exactly.
It's all a belief thing, really.
Yeah.
Just finding someone to blame.
And the 1400s, what kind of evidence do they have? Like,
exactly.
How the forensics.
Exactly. But yeah, so the fact she was an adulteress must prove she's a witch.
Of course, I mean...
So going anything against what God's wish is, you're a witch, basically.
Again, adultery in that time, everyone's very, confined to... I mean, adultery's not a good thing, but I guess then it was seen as more of a criminal offence rather than now where it's just frowned upon.
Yeah, it's another religion thing, because religion was so, prominent.
Yeah.
Because it was, one of the 10 Commandments. It's obviously such a big deal.
Yeah.
Whereas now, religion's not a big deal.
I think now adultery's more of a social concept rather than a religious one.
Yeah, exactly. So also he claimed she was friends with so-called witches. So that must mean she's a witch.
Oh, yeah.
So the only evidence was a woman was made ill and a man died, and she was somehow connected to them both. Basically, that's the only reason they claimed she was a witch, because she was so-called connected to them. And they were ill because they were in her presence, and
Yeah, obviously. What else?
Exactly. So he was, oddly, Cranmer was fixated on her sexual behaviour, because obviously, don't want to know why, but yeah. And he thought she'd had sex with the devil. Now this is...
That's an interesting one.
So this is the main thing they believed. They believed witches became witches. You weren't born as a witch. Some may have been, but people were brought on by the devil. Mm-hmm. Devils were around corners, seduce women in, she'd have sex with the devil, and then she'd become a witch. So this is what
that was their belief system.
This is what men were thinking at the time. That women having sex with the devil and then
becoming a witch. Has anyone ever seen a devil?
Exactly.
Like having sex with one?
Exactly.
God. Oh, that's
That's right. So a local bishop, offended by his accusations towards her, he brought a lawyer who was a physician to act in her defence. So the trial...
I mean, at least they gave her a defence.
Exactly, because that was very rarely happened with trials, which I will go on later to discuss. Yeah. So the trial was thrown and she was set free. This is very rare that a so-called witch would be set free from a trial, let alone have someone, acting in her name, let alone exactly, how this happened, we do not know.
This was a real rare case. Why?
Very rare.
Why did it happen for her and not others?
I think it just depends. Obviously, this was at the very start.
I see, okay.
And I feel that people at the time were probably like... Heresy's a thing, but it wasn't as big as a thing as when James I came in.
And it wasn't people trying to, attack each other or turn on each other yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So due to this... So it's made him look like an absolute idiot. So due to this, his reputation was tarnished and he lost his credibility. So you think, running around hunting witches, the first witch you kind of tried to catch is not a witch.
Yeah.
You're done for it, basically. So then, Cranmer wrote Malleus Maleficarum. This was one of the biggest books published, or papers published on witchcraft at the time. This will keep coming up.
Yeah.
So it was called The Hammer of Witches, and it declared that women practicing witchcraft should be executed by being burnt. So he brought in the ideas of heresy.
Okay. And what was his not qualifications, but what led him to how did he become the voice of witchcraft in the UK?
I have a feeling it was all due to whoever told him, go hunt witches.
Right.
And I feel that it's a different thing to do. And I'm not going to lie, good way to make money. You just have to accuse an odd woman here and there, and you travel around. So honestly, it was
being
one
a
of...
woman in that time, you can't stand up for yourself.
Exactly.
No,
No words,
If
nothing.
how are you gonna defend yourself in that situation?
Exactly.
You can't.
There's no way.
No.
So, again, they believed that the devil needed agents on Earth. And
Agents.
these were the witches.
Yeah.
So in order
It's like a
to...
little army.
It is.
God. In order to
Like a
infect...
fake one, but still.
So in order to infect a woman with witchcraft, she must have 3 specific vices. So this is what he's written in Malleus Maleficarum, okay? So infidelity, ambition, and lust. So any woman who, I would like to, work somewhere maybe above their station, maybe, different, not wanting to have marriage, to have children. Because obviously there will be women at the time who are old maids and don't want to be married or aren't married. Yeah. And this is when they would be like, she must be a witch because she's not conforming to social structures.
So basically any woman who wasn't fitting in with society's current idea of this is what a woman should be and this is what a woman should do was considered a witch.
Exactly.
Even just for having ambition.
Having an ambition.
Or being slightly more sexual than,
Exactly.
another woman. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's very, I don't know
It's just
what the word
sexist is what it is, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So the more insatiable the woman, the more liked the devil would lie with her. The more likely he would lie with
the more attractive she was, the more likely the devil would go after her.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Exactly.
Devil's got type.
Yeah.
the devil.
Unmarried women.
So he believed the principal acts of witches was to incite passion in men, obstructing the generative act too. Obstructing, regenerating, having children, and removing genitals. So again, the act would have gone again, and changing them into beasts, preventing other women from conceiving, procuring abortions, and killing babies as sacrifices for the devil.
Wow, that's quite a long list.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So obviously some women at the time would have got pregnant. However, at the time, abortion and that was not an option, a very dangerous option for mum and, for mums specifically. And obviously...
Do people know and have abortions at that time?
So some did. So,
is that a thing?
So it was a very, very dangerous method.
Well,
it was used, it was very obviously uncleanly. Normally another woman would do it. So if you go through many historical dramas, you can see aspects of it through. But yeah, it was a very dangerous thing.
In terms of infection control, that's a very...
Because again, linking it back to God.
Yeah.
God put women on this earth to have children, to, bring on new generations. And you're going against that.
It's a social thing as well as a health thing.
Yeah, 100%.
So
exactly.
Get rid of your child, then you're kind of disrespecting God.
Exactly.
Or a witch in this case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of these things could link to a number of women, as you will find out. So female healers, midwives, unmarried women, as I was saying earlier, adulterers, women who wanted to read and speak for themselves, women women married to unfertile men, I think that's meant to say.
Oh my gosh, so even if the man was unfertile and the woman can get pregnant,
because
it's her fault. Bloody hell.
It's okay. Yeah, it's fine. And any women out of social norms. So again,
anything that doesn't conform to society standards of women.
Basically.
Was a witch.
That seems to be a running theme here, doesn't it? It's like this very set society, and as soon as a woman started veering away, that was it. She was a witch. But it's interesting that, it's just obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, there's nothing mentioned about men here.
Yeah. It's also quite an easy blame. People be like, she must be a witch. It's quite an easy way for people
because
to...
again...
And then everyone would believe it because they're terrified.
Because if you blamed a man blaming a man, he had a right to argue for him. But if a man blaming a woman, she has no say, basically.
It's seen as weak, so...
Yeah. So, Malleus Maleficarum, the great paper book that Cranmer made, was full of outrageous tales. He's especially hated to women, so they do marvellous things with regards to male organs, which is a quote out of the
I'm just
book.
wondering, if it was this kind of the time that people couldn't read?
So yeah, many were illiterate. So many of the working classes, peasants, could not read.
So would this be like almost preached to them?
So I guess, yeah, I'm guessing it would be preached to them. So church was a way of people being preached to. I know a lot of it was in Latin at the time. So again, that's harder to hear. But they would listen to their superiors, a lot of peasants. So if a man came through giving a declaration from the king, the people would listen to that and believe it. Yeah. It's basically propaganda through a person and not a poster.
Well, they have no way of finding out anything different, really, if they can't read and...
Yeah, exactly. If you can't read, understand, or not really know what's going on.
You hear because
exactly.
You don't really have any way to find any other source of information.
So basically, everything that was being told to them, they just believe, and that's how this attack came really on people who were suspected.
And how it became so widespread.
Yeah, because it spread massively, didn't it?
So as soon as we hit James I, everyone goes mad.
Yeah.
So yeah. So one of the things he claimed, this was one of Holly's favourite quotes. So he claimed that some witches collected male genitals, put them in bird boxes, and fed them oats and corn.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's so strange.
So cramped, as you can tell.
When I read this book for the first time, I was like,
what on earth is going on?
What?
So his main assault was against midwives, because obviously you're bringing a child into the world. Yeah. However, if the child is stillborn, if the child dies during birth, if the mother dies, it's at the hands of her.
That's ridiculous, especially in a time when there was zero to none medical care.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a time when people still believed that bleeding someone was going to help them out.
So females within this medical profession had to hide away to try not to be accused of witchcraft at the time.
And all these poor ladies are trying to do is help babies be delivered, and now they're being accused of witchcraft.
And also healers. So many women were herbal healers, so they would have... Get the idea of a healer. They would have, leaves and stuff. Oh, this will help you with this. This will help you with that. But then people could accuse her of witchcraft because it's something that could cure you.
It's a crazy thing that it is anything without the conform of society. Because it's like anything that's not a doctor, they come from a woman must be a witch. Yeah. It's like any other remedy that's not the one that's known through doctors and medics is incorrect.
Exactly.
The doctors in this time didn't have a clue what they were doing. They didn't have. I mean,
and many people would just bring in the vicar. So if your child was ill, so an example of this is in Outlander. It's a series you can watch on what was it? I can't remember the name of the website. I would put it in the comments. But and basically they showed. So she's travelled through time, and she's in Scotland, and it's just after.
I feel like I've seen a little bit.
So basically, she is a healer. So she used to be a doctor, but she's now a healer back in this time. And there's a child that was very ill, and he was having fits and all this. They brought in the vicar to try and get the devil out of him because they thought the devil was in him because he's having fits and he's ill. But she's going, no, he's ill, and he's like, well, why? You don't know what you're doing, you're a woman.
Yeah.
So basically, people would panic and be like, they just basically let their children die because they thought it was the devil that within them, and they had to let the kid die for the devil to come out.
That's ridiculous.
I know, it is mad.
It just shows the grip that, especially in the previous times, that religion can have on people. I mean, it pretty much controlled the whole of society, really, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I think that series is on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, So, the invention of the printing press from 1500 meant that this book was circulated through Europe, as witchcraft got more prominent in it proving an essential guidebook for most. So people would use this as a guide. Do you know, I'm just like...
The book that says that genitals should be put in boxes.
Oh, exactly, and probably...
That was a guide.
Yeah.
And probably included of, signs of witchcraft, what a woman might look like, all of this would be in this book.
Yeah, but
and people...
any different. It's crazy.
It's a trend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know, nowadays, it's basically a trend.
It's funny. I think that's a real comment on society, that how things just pick up so quickly. Like, one person can start something and it immediately is everywhere.
Yeah, suddenly, and no one questions it.
No.
Everyone's like, sure, I'll
even
take
if
that.
it's wrong, like this, or like some things nowadays, even if it's wrong.
Well, I suppose if people questioned it, if women turned against them, it was like, no, that's wrong, they would be a witch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's literally no defences, is there?
No.
None
There's
at all.
no way for you to deny it.
Imagine being in that situation, though.
Yeah, you have no... But they don't think women at the time felt they could stand up for themselves. Yeah. Do you know? However, so Cranmer then went on, because obviously he's a man of a church and believes everything God says. So Cranmer said that infant death and miscarriage wasn't natural, and it was insisted that the devil was working to repossess midwives to kill infants as offers to the devil.
Offensive.
Yeah.
Imagine telling women that them, not being able to carry their children or being infertile or having a stillborn, which is a traumatic event. It's really traumatic. Yeah, imagine being told that it's not natural and it's their fault.
Yeah, and it's because the devil is in them. Imagine the distress when they then get told that the devil is in them. They're like, oh my God.
It would drive you mad.
Yeah.
It would drive you
and
up
you probably...
wall.
Some people may even believe them because they are in that society where they're
you're like, oh my God. If you're being told by a man, okay, this is another thing that comes into it. So if you were a poor peasant woman, you've had this child, the child's no longer alive anymore, and you're being told by men higher than your station, there's a witch.
And that's your fault.
That's your fault. You're not going to argue with him because he's higher than your station. Yeah. These people never talk to peasants.
I mean, you'd probably confess even if you
did
anything wrong, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Gosh. So he implied that all failed pregnancies was a woman attended by a midwife should be suspected as witchcraft, and witch midwives surpass all other witches in their craft. So he basically hated midwives. So this was
they were like the top level of witches.
So this was the way this is him bringing out his anger on one specific type of witches.
And they would be seen as, not more intelligent, but having knowledge.
Exactly.
So this is a man coming down on women who were even, slightly more knowledgeable than the general population.
Yeah.
Which is just ridiculous. It's like, oh, you might know a little bit more, you're a witch, die.
You can't know more than
you can't know more. Why are you trying? It's the what's it called? The word that he said, the 3 words.
Yeah, ambitious
it's ambition.
lust.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just coming down on people who are slightly more ambitious.
So, we're going to move through time a little bit, and we're going to go to the 16th and 17th century. James I on the throne, and again, I will go and talk about him in a minute. However, so approximately 45,000 people were executed for the crime of witchcraft in this time. 45,000.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of people.
Just for witchcraft.
Yes, and it's not even a real crime, is it? Really?
No. It's all just people being accused. False accusations, really.
False accusations.
So 80% of them were women, and many over the age of 40.
So they did prosecute men as well.
So some men were prosecuted. So one fun fact I learned from a podcast called You're Dead to Me, and they said on there that in Iceland more men were executed for witchcraft than women.
So interesting. Yeah. How come it was different there? Do you know?
I think they could even tell you, but I think it just depended on...
Is it more of a cultural thing?
I'm guessing so. But yeah, over here you had the odd man, but...
That's interesting.
Didn't really happen.
Yeah.
So anxieties with the influence of witchcraft was well across the continent and just rife everywhere. So everyone. So as soon as this kicked in, everyone was like, oh my God, I don't know who's a witch. I could become a witch because I could have sex with the devil. I don't know. Because imagine being you're a witch. You've had sex with the devil and you're going to go, hang on a second. When?
Yeah.
How? But then people would believe it because they're being told that.
Yeah.
So...
And you denying it, I guess, women just feel like, well, they're not going to admit to being a witch. Because they don't want to be...
So...
Yeah, you literally... You're defenceless. Like, you cannot get yourself out of that. If I pointed at Lucy in that time and went, you're a witch, Luce, you'd be dead.
Yeah.
Which is just you're like friends as well.
Yeah.
You know more often.
People would snitch on their neighbours.
They snitched on each other, didn't they? Like, if I did something that upset Luce and went, and she could just go, Holly, you're a witch.
She's a witch.
She's gone.
Yeah. So a lot of these women who were executed were over the age of 40, as I just said, and many of this was due to the menopause. However, this was they had the idea of periods, but the menopause, you didn't know what it was.
You can't explain the science.
So many interpreted.
You can't understand it.
Yeah, many of these.
Put a reason to something.
So this was the symptoms were interpreted as being a witch. So that was how you were diagnosed as a witch.
And I guess again that periods and stuff signify that you're fertile.
Yeah, exactly.
And as soon as you stop, it's like, right, you're not fertile anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's society saying, oh, what's your use now? You're not fertile.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which makes me so mad. So.
Basically, all women at that time grew and aged into witches.
So
crazy.
So Malleus Maleficarum, gotta get it out, was one of the most misogynistic pieces of work ever written. So to say that he had a problem with women was an understatement.
Yeah.
So the title of Cranmer's work refers specifically to women. In Latin, maleficarum is in the feminine gender. Therefore, the title actually means the hammer of female witches.
So he was just a bit of a sexist, really.
Yeah.
Who got a kick
Just
out
really
of
didn't like women.
Yeah. Do you reckon someone scorned, like,
Something
must have happened there to be that hateful?
Yeah.
Because you can't just be told, go find these witches and kill them, and
exactly.
then have that much of an opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So, as Cranmer believes witches to have... Cranmer believes that witches have been born from the sex of demons. So, if you had sex with a demon, you got witch, basically. Yeah. So, his book was the result of a feud between him and Helena Schuberin. So, I'm thinking this is why he hates women. Because the fact his first trial...
we heard about her earlier,
fact because his first trial failed, I think maybe this is what must have brought it on.
So his trial failed after being given this new job. And he's gone, oh no.
Yeah.
I look bad now. I look bad at my job.
Ego's been shattered.
Yeah.
So he hated her because she would curse him in the street and encourage others not to attend his sermons as she believed him to be evil. So she's going around going,
yes, Helena.
Yeah.
Don't go to this bloke's thing because he said I was a witch, but I'm not a witch because I got proven at a trial that I'm not. And he's just, you're going to be outraged, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you're in his... Well, I wouldn't be. He'd be dead to me, but, So, in response, he accused her of witchcraft. And, again, this is where because he was going against her. She was going against him. And then he brought her to trial. So that's where the trial links in.
Yeah. That's also going against, his whole now profession and his whole livelihood. So I guess he probably would retaliate.
Is this back? Oh, we've gone back again.
So basically her trial. So her trial that she had, that I talked about earlier, was, I think, brought on from a mixture of her chatting, being angry about him.
Yeah. But
also, you're linked to him and you're linked to that. So if you're not being nice about me, I have reasons to link you to witchcraft. But then, obviously, it didn't go through, so he's going to be even more annoyed. So, Malleus Maleficarum was used in many European governments as the basis of the mass murder of the opposed witches during this era, basically. So they used, whip out Malleus Maleficarum and be like, well, you linked to about 5 different points in this book, you're a witch.
So it's kind of like a Bible, really. Like
a Bible to these people.
Point, yeah. Because people were taking it as Bible.
Yeah, literally.
It was like word by word. If you follow the words in this book, then you are therefore a witch.
So moving to Scotland at this time.
Is this James the first time now?
Not so.
Not yet.
Yes. So he's now king. Scotland, England, and Wales. So this is when Scotland and England were brought together after Elizabeth's death. They were brought together.
So what century is this? Sorry,
late 1500s.
Okay.
He was brought in. So Scotland, approximately 3,000 to 4,000 witches were executed between 1560 and 1707, and during the 2-year period of England's Long Parliament, approximately 200 people were accused of witchcraft. So just whip it, just culling them, basically.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I was thinking earlier when we heard about that 45,000 people. It's like a mass, not a mass, it's just like getting rid of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Like, also, I feel like you'd be so scared as a woman to do anything.
Yeah.
Because if you do something wrong, you could literally, they would find some kind of evidence to say that you're a witch.
And you're almost forced by propaganda into, like you said earlier, into this idea of what a life should be by the church or by men. Yeah. If you don't have children and have all your children and, be, quiet and sit and care for your children, then you're a witch. Yeah. You're almost forced into that lifestyle. Like, there's no room for being anything else.
No, exactly.
There's no way to be a woman other than to be maternal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, from the English Heritage website and Diane Purkis wrote this article. Basically, this is her interpretation and her research on the ideas of witchcraft. So I may be repeating some of the stuff I've already said, but yeah. So, the devil was waiting around a corner to pull you in. So he could be chilling around that corner, grab you, you're a witch. This is what people were believing. Witches were loyal to the devil and interfere with crops, animals to sicken, and family members to sicken.
So they blamed all their problems on witches, really.
Anything that went wrong, they'd be like,
you're a witch.
Even
if
it's a natural
that's your
thing
problem.
that happens, like crops fail, that's the weather. Not a witch.
No.
So some people actually believed that their female neighbours were selling their soul to the devil. Some people actually believe
it's
it.
like neighbourhood drama to the extreme, isn't it? It's like I don't like that.
So an example
You're a witch.
So an example of this, I will talk about this series later. So it's The Witchfinder, and it's on BBC iPlayer. Hilarious. So it's a comedy. It's a comedy witchcraft series, and basically it all starts with witchfinders, and I'll talk about more of this in episode 2. And basically, this woman is accused of being a witch because next door's pig has died, and she's odd. She's not married. She's got a chicken as a friend, and they all think she's really odd. And she gets drunk, and she's very manly.
Yeah.
And they basically went, "My pig's dead, so you're the witch." And people believe this. Like, it's just I can't.
It's like word of mouth as well, isn't it? Like, oh, she's been accused of a witch, she did this, and it's like, well, you're gonna believe it, aren't you?
It would go around so fast. Like, the second someone accuses you of it, I reckon your whole, like, socially as well, you're gonna be completely outcast.
100%.
So in later centuries, constant attempts to defeat heresy brought to light a number of figures who were difficult to reconcile with Christianity. So such figures were typically created without reference to witchcraft at all, but led to the creation of a figure of a heretic witch. So those who basically weren't religious, you're a witch, basically.
Yeah.
So
the list of things that you can be accused of a witch for, it's just growing.
It's gross,
isn't it?
So one such figure was particular to the Western Alps.
A pandemic
of witches,
I mean,
society.
So she was the female, so she's in the Alps, this woman, this witch. She was the female embodiment of winter. A female figure often called Bertha, Percha, or Buffoona. Honestly, these are very...
Pachutta.
Yeah, Pachutta. So she punished social disobedience and rewarded goodness. She was also portrayed as an old hag because she was represented as cold like winter. It didn't take long for intellectuals to note her resemblance to the witches with whom they were familiar from classical literature.
Is this where the sort of, I mean, from what it sounds like in the past it was young or old, so women. Is this how the kind of image of, not modern as such anymore, but like a witch, warts, like what you said at the start, like old, like black, is that where that
so when you're linking to classical literature, I'm guessing this was in later times where people were like, but it's just around a woman chilling in the Alps,
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, okay.
But the old hag kind of image, I guess.
And in a remote place, no kids.
Yeah.
So slowly over time, we've got predating Christianity all the way up to today. But I'm guessing this is more around James I. So slowly in bits and pieces, the idea of witches emerged. And very broadly speaking, a witch is a person who employs magical entities, which may include powers she carries within her body to harm other people. She doesn't have to be female. She certainly doesn't have to have a hat and a broomstick. She has to be married, lopsided, and she has
Did you say lopsided?
Well, it says lopsided here. This is what Diane Perkins, so this is not mine.
No, I know. I mean, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean by lopsided?
Yeah,
What's lopsided mean? Like, not looking? Not, like, quote-unquote normal? Like,
so she basically, she's claiming that, like, she has to be like she's dead. So, infertile, grumpy,
where did the whole broomstick thing, witching can fly?
So I will be coming on to talk about that in episode 3, where the bringing of witchcraft and, the whole Halloween idea.
Yes.
But I will be later on going to talk about that. So there's no really particular point where the idea of a witch kind of came from, but like you can see it throughout the whole of history.
Like, the kind of development in society and how it kind of came to form.
So now we're going to talk about everyone's favourite guy who brought all of this full-on madness to England. So James I of England, but James VI of Scotland. So this set of information is taken from a BBC Sounds podcast called Witches, James I and the English Witch.
Is that the one we listened to?
No. So this was on BBC Scotland, this one I'm linking to. And then also it's taken from this book as well.
Oh, interesting.
So Tracey Boarman's book. So with a bit of background, so he was the only son of Mary Queen of Scots. So she was the last queen of just Scotland. And Lord Darnley, so that was Mary's second husband. He was not very nice at all, however. So he was the first king to unite England and Scotland, and he came to the English throne on the 24th of March, 1603. So he's later.
Was he already king of Scotland and then he was king of England?
No, so
Sorry, my history's really not very good about this kind of thing.
I think he was king of Scotland for a little while before he became both, because I know Mary was executed before Elizabeth died.
Right, okay.
Because Elizabeth was like, you're going to be executed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was king of Scotland and then became king of England. Because on Elizabeth's deathbed, she was like, he can be the heir, basically. Yeah. So the issue with this is Mary only had one child. So he was the only heir. And he was a single child and very paranoid. So he thought everyone was plotting against him. He thought, anyone, in the castle, you could be plotting against me. Very paranoid man, basically.
He didn't want to lose his throne.
Didn't want to lose his throne, didn't want to lose his life, didn't want to lose anything. Yeah. Just thought everyone was against him. You get those people nowadays.
And we did learn about that, didn't we, in Macbeth?
Yeah.
That very, paranoid state of... Yeah.
So from 1589 to 90... he was looking to marry. So this is the thing, again, the generation thing. You need to have children, you need to marry. And especially as a king, you need heirs. So he took his eyes to Anne of Denmark. But when she tried to come over for the marriage and, for them to get married, there was terrible storms in Scotland. So this is where it all kicks off. So
he's gone, someone's stopping me from having
yeah. Yeah. So he then goes, oh my God, I need her to come over. So he tries to get over to Norway to bring her back. So he gets to Norway. However, on the way back, tried to get back, horrific storms again.
So every time something...
Yeah.
I mean, it's just coincidence, isn't it, really?
However, we got to blame the Danish, because the Danish started having witch trials over this. So the fact there were horrific storms, the Danish were going, looking at you, you must be a witch.
Yeah.
It shows how widespread it is throughout all of Europe. And simple things like the weather. No one can control the weather.
So when James then returned to Scotland, he launches his own trials, which were the North Berwick trials, and they were the biggest ones.
Did he take inspiration from Denmark there?
Yeah.
And the Danish?
So he took inspiration for the Danish, and then all of these lovely witch finders who needed a job took all inspiration from him, and obviously Cranmer and Malleus Maleficarum.
It's a chance for me to earn some money.
So Malleus Maleficarum was written before James. Well, not before James, but before he came to the throne. So then he used Malleus Maleficarum as a guide for him, basically.
The basis.
This book, could you say that this book cemented witchcraft in history and caused witchcraft to be how it is now?
I think if it wasn't written in paper, and I think if it was talked about, I don't think it would have been as big of a deal as it was.
Yeah, because then it did carry on for so long. Because it was written and it was talked about. You could read it, you could reference back to it and be like, this is what they said.
So a good example of, think of the tabloids today. People, there's a saying that it says, it's today's news, but it's tomorrow's, fish and chip paper.
Yeah.
But that news will be there forever. Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
You can't or unprint something, can you?
Exactly. So I think,
and so if it hasn't been written, it probably, if it was word of mouth, it would have probably died out by the time it got to Jacob.
Mm-hmm. To James, yeah.
James.
That's alright.
Well, it's the Jacobean era.
Yeah, they will have J names, don't worry.
Also, Jacob's not very...
Jacobean. So
Is that what the era we're in at the moment? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he believed he was the direct target of the devil. The bloke chilling around the corner, the devil, was looking at James going, "You're dead."
But didn't he think he was he had a divine right as well to be king? I remember that he was like, I am, I'm only second to God.
And this
he was like, I am.
If you want to see how narcissistic he is, he claimed he was the devil's greatest enemy.
Wow, that's quite a claim, that.
Yeah. Well, that's also probably backs up his things like, if I'm his greatest enemy, then he must be put against me because there's no one else that he would not.
So I think in this sense, because obviously he's a single child, paranoid, irritating, he was trying to present himself as a strong leader, and being able to take charge of the Protestant faith and to show people how powerful and strong he was, like to battle both sides, to battle the people, but also to battle the devil, like, you know, to go against, to be with God and to be able to fight. Yeah. So I think showing people that the devil, you know, again, that idea of propaganda, saying the devil hates me, I'm the like devil's biggest hater, but I can, you know, push him away, he doesn't come near me, I hate him. People are going to be like, oh my God, you must be like a sort of martyr type of thing.
Yeah, that's like propaganda in the extreme there.
Yeah.
Like,
so he basically thought he was taking on Satan.
Wow.
So he's trying to show the English people that he's not trying, that he's not getting any king. They're not getting like any bog standard king, but the mighty enemy of the devil. Imagine having that as your title.
And I mean, if
you're be afraid as well.
Yeah. If you're trying to take over Scotland and England, you know, that's going to put some pretty good, you know, standing to your name, isn't it?
But I think when obviously always a changeover of king or queen, you're very shaky with anyone could take over the throne at that time. Yeah. So putting this in, people are going to be like, if you had any other contenders for the throne, no, we've got the devil's greatest enemy here. Yeah. He's going to protect us. Yeah. So
I mean, even though it's all lies.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
So not only was it fear of, because there's a massive fear in terms of going against religion, it was also a massive fear of, like, the devil's everywhere. So then it's like, well, if we don't have him, then so we need religion and we need the monarchy. Basically, it's followed. Wow. So you follow anything they said because of that fear.
Yeah. So James on some occasions personally interrogated women. So this is how like big head he thought he was. So he claimed himself as an expert interrogator. So he thinks he has that much of a sophisticated understanding. He holds himself that high that he can interrogate a woman going, "You're a witch." Do you know?
Being interrogated by the King of England is going to confess.
Exactly.
Yeah. What defence are you going to have against a guy, a woman who in those times was just considered, you know, nothing? Yeah. You've got the King of England coming at you. Yeah. What are you going to do? What can you do? You can't do anything in that situation, can you?
So he was that interested and fascinated with witchcraft. He wrote his own book called Demonology. You may have heard of this book, potentially.
I think we talked about it a little bit.
So he saw it again. He saw himself as an expert, and he became involved in the North Berwick trials witch hunt in the 1590s.
So was that like the first kind of witch trials and hunting in England, even though we had witch hunters before?
So this was in Scotland at the time. So 1590. So this was just before. So he came to the throne in 1630 for England. However, he's already on the Scottish throne. Okay. So this is him in Scotland. This is before everything, you know, goes wrong.
So were there trials before this, but was this just more widespread, or?
So this is straight after he's come back from Denmark and gone, witches. Yeah. Let's have a little roundup and see what I can find.
Right. Obviously
using Malleus Maleficarum in this. Obviously his own magical knowledge on witches and basically bringing it into a trial. Yeah. So he viewed himself as a victim, as those accused in the trials were not accused of witchcraft but of high treason. So he's bringing in the idea that you're working with the devil, you're going against me, that is treasonous, basically. So North Berwick witch hunt did not just involve James, but also the state of Denmark, as the case involved James's wife, Anne of Denmark, and two Danish women were executed at Kronborg.
Wait, did he execute his wife?
No. So basically, he brought in two women. He accused two women in where are we? Denmark. There we go. Denmark, for cursing her shit, basically. And the witch hunt was implicated over 70 people and several were executed. So that's only one.
That's one trial.
That's one trial.
People being accused.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So he had a propaganda pamphlet printed in England. Bearing in mind, not many people could read it. Yeah. But so News from Scotland, making sure his people could read about it. So kind of showing, look what I can do. I'm amazing. And again, because you've got that divide of Scotland, England, you're so far apart. And obviously travelling, it would take you days to travel from Edinburgh down to London. Yeah. So printing these pamphlets showing I'm here, and it means that it's kind of, because again the idea he can protect us. Rebellions won't rise up because he could protect us. And again, that idea of, look what I can do. So he was... So it was the only book... So his book, Demonology, was the only book written by a reigning monarch. And it even included topics on like fairies and werewolves.
Wow.
How amazing.
Yeah. So we've got
so that is where it
fantasy
comes in.
coming in there as well. Is that the kind of start of you know, where we build into this idea that witches are more of a fantastical thing?
It seems like it, doesn't it?
Flying on broomsticks.
Exactly, yeah.
So he was so obsessed with the black arts, he even convinced Parliament to pass the Witchcraft Statute of 1604, which ruled witchcraft as a crime punishable by death. So he basically was the guy that brought in the idea that, you know, you could accuse someone and they could die.
So this was law now. Like, it was, rather than just, like, small towns dealing with
this
things
is
themselves,
England.
this is now law.
Yes.
So that you can prosecute people you think that are witches.
In 1603, passed the Acts Against Conjugation, witchcraft, dealing with evil and wicked spirits. This meant anyone accused of witchcraft could now be tried in common courts rather than religious courts. So there were many types of courts at the time. You'd brought to a religious court because you weren't praying, you weren't doing this, you weren't doing that. However, they've now stepped this up to big courts. So these type of courts were probably theft, murder, stuff like that. Obviously,
wow, so it's on the same lines as
like,
so now it's not even a religious crime anymore.
No,
it's not just a devil crime. It's a look, you are a menace to society.
You are as bad as murderers.
Wow.
So his obsession with witches led to 4,000 to 6,000 people being prosecuted for witchcraft, and 75% of them were women.
Yeah.
So that's just him. So obviously we have this madness over in England at the time, or England, Scotland, United Kingdom as a whole. And then obviously later on, well, even at this time, people are moving over to the Americas after, you know, people have found...
Right.
Yeah.
And the idea of New England and all this. So you've got a lot of English people moving over. It's a new form of life. It's new. It's amazing.
To get away.
Colonising,
basically.
Not
in
great.
their idea. Not great, but in their idea, it's amazing. New place.
Yeah. You know.
So, because obviously a lot of English people have moved, so this was very new, obviously moving over. This is where witchcraft and Salem was brought over. So I'm only going to touch on Salem a little bit because I could talk for hours.
Is that in the next episode?
No, so I'm only just going to touch on Salem because I tried to keep it to... But yeah, so New England, you've heard about witches over in, you know, Scotland, England. You're like, flippin' heck, I could die. There could be devils chilling around the corner for me. So they brought in... So this is taken from a history.com website about the Salem witch trials. So the trials begun in the spring of 1692.
This is a long time in the future now, isn't it? We were just talking about 1604 and 1603.
So this is after James.
So James is dead now.
After James.
So he's trying to set the legacy, really.
Basically.
After Cranmer and his book, he set the legacy.
And then you had demonology, and now you've got all of this.
Yeah.
So after a group of young girls in a Salem village in Massachusetts claimed to be possessed by the devil. Again, devil, still a pot. So the first convicted witch was Bridget Bishop. 150 more men and women and children were accused over the next several months. Even men. And,
we haven't really talked much about children apart from the babies, but children being accused of witchcraft.
So again,
it just sounds out of this world, doesn't
so
it?
there were two. So there was obviously the people that cast the spell on the people. However, once that child had the devil within them, there was no way of getting the devil out. So your only other option was to execute them.
Gosh.
So again, the idea of illness. If they don't get over that illness and they're really badly poisoned, really ill, because obviously
even just hereditary.
Also, really shows how
illness,
little you can do. Like if they're accusing a child that has no, it is not at the mental like point where they can defend themselves, even though you couldn't really anyway. But even have anything to say against it.
Exactly.
So it really was just you're a witch, and then it's kind of just
a dead child, which is horrible.
Yeah.
You can't. You're like the women. You're defenseless in that situation, and you know that's a child. That is a child who's, you know, they haven't done anything wrong.
Exactly, nothing specific, but because
a
witch has, you know, cursed them, it's just awful. So, what?
Does that conclude our...
Yeah, it does, but I would like a fun fact from both of you.
Oh god.
If you can remember one.
I mean, I remember what we've been talking about, but I don't know what a good fact would be. Oh, I think, was it 45,000 people were prosecuted and convicted, with 80% of them being women?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then
that's stuck in my brain.
Like 75% was women.
Yeah.
And also the Iceland thing was quite interesting.
Yeah,
how
more men.
Like, it's really, I might have to look into that.
Yeah.
Because that's really interesting. Like, what was so different about their society and their culture that made it more...
Yeah.
I think this has been really interesting though. Yeah. I've definitely learned a lot about
That's good.
Witchcraft. And the three things was like lust, ambition, and what was it?
Infidelity. Yeah. I think that was interesting as well. So basically, you're doomed from the get-go as a woman. You have to fit into this kind of conceived idea of what a woman should be, and if you're not, then you're a witch.
Because really, that is what women were in that society. Yeah. You know, you can't be ambitious. You have to like just kind of go with whatever men are telling you. You know, you have to have babies, you have to have fertility because you have to have children to carry on the legacy.
Was it still a thing that you had to be a virgin before you were married?
Yeah.
So infidelity and things like that,
That was...
and lust, even wanting, you know, to have sex or, you know, to have, you know, natural instinct.
Yeah, exactly.
You were prosecuted.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's mad. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
That's okay.
It's really interesting.
That's good.
I've definitely learned a lot,
So go listen. There will be 2 other episodes coming out soon, and I hope you enjoy, and I'll be able to answer my ultimate question: how has witchcraft changed over the centuries? Thank you.